Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I'm going to show you all the books that I picked up in the month of August. I do have to say that August was probably my least productive month when it comes to picking up books, but that's totally fine if you ask me. I just needed a bit of a break. When I was on my summer holiday, I just kind of wanted to switch my brain off and not think about anything basically. So I only picked up one or two books, and that's totally fine if you ask me. I really needed it, so I'm happy that I was able to kind of relax and gain some energy from my summer holiday. And now that I'm back, I can show you all the books that I picked up. And I do have to say that I have a really interesting couple of books that I picked up last month, a couple of ordinary ones, and I did have one DNF, which stands for did not finish, that I'm going to discuss with you. So if you're interested in seeing which interesting books I picked up last month, just stay tuned. So just to cross off the DNF that I had last month, I'm going to mention it first. The book is called Fumbled Hearts by Brandy. I just saw it in my audio library, and I think I looked it up on Goodreads and it said new adult sports romance. I was like, okay, this should be kind of a light-hearted read. So I picked it up, but it really was not new adult. It was more young adult. I think it takes place in high school, and just the high school drama. I think it was something like new girls comes to town, and this playboy guy wants to date her and kind of is all up in her business the whole time. And just all the drama did not, I was just not in the mood for it. So I put it down and I was like, okay, I'm not going to finish this book. I really have to be honest with myself. So I didn't finish it. And I'm happy that I'm finally at a stage where I can decide when I really cannot finish a book, and I just put it down so I don't waste my time with it and I don't feel anxious that I need to finish it. So I'm really happy with that. Let me continue on with the books that I did pick up, which the first one was quite the surprise for me. I have to say that one I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. The book is called The Dead Romantics, and the author is Ashley Poston. And I did see this book go around, not so much on Booktube as much as on Bookstagram. I like the cover of it, and I did see that it has something to do with a paranormal romance, which I'm not always a fan of. But I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. I have it on audio and I'm just gonna see whether I'm going to like it. And when I got immersed into the story, I was so pleasantly surprised because it was such an interesting read. The book centers around Florence, who is a ghostwriter for a very famous romance author, and she is on a deadline for a new release, and it's I believe her last contracted release that she needs to do for this publishing house. And she has a new publisher. She goes over there to meet him because she kind of has lost her inspiration to write romance books because she has had a very bad breakup. So she doesn't believe in love anymore, and she finds it very difficult to come up with a new story to write about. And she goes to her new publisher to get an extension on her deadline, and he doesn't give it to her. So she's kind of really pissed off about the whole situation. And the interesting thing is that Florence actually sees ghosts, and certain things happen where she starts to see this new ghost. She's very intrigued by, or she's not very intrigued by him at the beginning, but she is intrigued by the fact that this ghost is actually her new publisher. She just saw him in real life, so she's kind of confused as to why she's seeing him as a ghost form as well. I'm not going to mention too much more about it because if you're interested in picking this up, I don't want to spoil too much for you. But I have to say that this was an amazingly surprising read for me. I gave it 5 stars because I was just so immersed into the story, and even though there's a paranormal element, which I don't typically have an affinity with, I really, really love this book. I love the development of the relationship between an actual human being and a ghost. And I was wondering, how is this going to play out if they actually fall in love the ghost is a ghost. So how is this relationship going to continue? I was really curious about it, and if you're curious too, you should pick it up. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the next two books that I picked up because they're a third and a fourth book within a series. It's called the Empire Nightclub series by K.A. Tucker. I finished the first two in the past couple of months, and then I binged the last two because they came out on audio in my Storytel app. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them because I'm going to ruin the plot for you if you want to pick up the series. What we saw in the first book, just to give you an idea, so if you want to pick this series up, we have Mercy and Gabriel who meet at this prison because both of their fathers are in prison for different crimes. Mercy, unfortunately, is in a situation where her father was put in jail because he murdered someone who tried to assault her. So she feels like his place is not there. He doesn't belong there. So she's kind of trying to figure out a way of getting him out. But she's not very well off. She doesn't have any connections, and this is where Gabriel comes in because he actually is a billionaire and he is connected and he can help her out, but he has his own agenda. He's very attracted to her, so he kind of makes a proposal for him to help her while he gets something in return. This is how the whole series starts, and then in the progression of the next three books, basically we see their relationship evolve. I think I gave both of the books 3.5 stars if I'm not mistaken. They're not bad, but they are my least favorite by K.A. Tucker. I absolutely adore K.A. Tucker, the Wolf Hotel series, the Simple Wild series. I love those books. So she is a favorite author of mine, but I do have to say that this series was my least favorite by her. So yeah, check it out if you're interested to pick up a mafia related series, and it's a bingeable series. They read quite fast, especially if you have the audio, they read quite fast. The next book I picked up because I was extremely curious about the plot. It's revolving around an audiobook narrator, and I haven't yet read too many of those, so I was really curious to see how I would like it. The book is called Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan, and Julia Whelan is actually a very famous audiobook narrator, so seeing as she is actually someone who is very familiar with the trope she's writing about, with the main character's profession, I was very curious to see how that one will be written, and I absolutely loved it. I do have to say that this book is not only a romance, and I don't think I'm going to tell you too much about the plot itself and how the romance is getting about, because it's going to be a bit spoilery, but I do have to say that this book not only has a romance within it, but also it's a story a bit of about self-image, self-acceptance, about how we build relationships when we don't have a good relationship with ourselves yet, and how we need to overcome that. So I really loved it. I really appreciated it. I gave it 4 stars, and I think that it deserves to be picked up. It's, I believe, only the second book by Julia Whelan that she has published, and she is just doing so well when it comes to writing. I think that all her experience with audiobook narration just has kind of helped her and has brought out a very interesting plot about. So yeah, I definitely recommend this one. And then next up, I picked up a book that Bree recommended from In Love and Words. It's actually a duet. It's a very dark themed duet. It's by Trisha Wolf, and it's called the Born Darkly duet, I think. That's also the name of the first book, if I'm not mistaken. This book centers around Grayson and London. Grayson is a serial killer who has been put in jail, and London is his appointed psychologist, I think. Psychologist or psychiatrist, I always get them mixed up. His therapist. So, yeah, this is a very dark themed romance, and I do have to say that I didn't enjoy it all too much. I don't know whether it was that I didn't feel the connection between the two characters. I was not very bothered by the dark theme that we have, obviously, a serial killer who kind of manipulates his therapist into getting feelings for him, especially because she kind of, yeah. I don't want to mention too much again to not spoil anything if you are interested in picking this up, but he does really manipulate her into getting feelings for him. So that didn't really bother me too much. But the fact that for some reason just the connection fell off between the two characters, so I really didn't enjoy it all too much. I did give it 3 stars because it was very fast-paced and well-written, and I could appreciate that I got into the story because it was well-written, but it just wasn't for me, I think. So I don't think I'll read the second book, if I have to be honest. And yeah, it wasn't a bad one. Maybe it just didn't work for me. I think that also when I saw the ratings on Goodreads, many people appreciated it for being a dark romance, which was very well written and well developed, but it just really wasn't my thing, I think. So I've mentioned before in a couple of other videos that I'm saving a specific book for my summer holiday, and I picked it up when I was at the coast in August. This is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This author has very quickly become one of my favorite authors. Every book that I've picked up by Taylor Jenkins Reid has been a 4 or 5 star read for me, and this one is no exception. I absolutely loved it. In this book, we're following Mick Riva and his family. Mick Riva was mentioned in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. He was one of her husbands, and we're kind of getting different chapters about different characters. We see how Mick Riva fell in love with his kid's mother, and we also follow his children's perspectives of how they're dealing with their mother and father's relationship, with their own relationships with their parents, and what their own situation is also in present life. We have the kids who are Nina, Jay, Kit, and Hud, and Taylor Jenkins Reid just does such an amazing job when it comes to character development. Within such a short story, you kind of get to feel so much about each and every one of these characters, about Mick, about Nina, Jay, Hud, everyone, because you get all of their backstories, or not backstories, but you get all of their stories within this short book, and each of the chapters is also really short, so you kind of get immersed into the story in a very quick pace. So it just reads so amazingly well, almost like a biopic movie. It was just so amazingly crafted. It's just such an amazing read, and I have to say that also the ending where we have the kids having a very important conversation with their father, it just filled my heart, and it just hit home for me. I felt so strongly about the way that this book ended, and all the foreshadowing in the beginning just made so much sense, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. I think I gave it about 4.5 stars because it wasn't my all-time favorite book by this author, but it definitely deserves your time if you want to pick this one up. Next up, I picked up the audiobook for Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. I always wanted to pick up this book, but I was putting it off, and now that I have the audio in Storytel, I was like, okay, I'm going to read this because it has such an amazing, it has so many amazing reviews that I really want to know whether I'm going to enjoy it as well. The book follows Oliver and Luke. So it's a male-male romance, and Luke is the son of 2 famous musicians, so he is kind of in the spotlight as well. It's centered in London, by the way. So he is being followed around by paparazzi his whole life, even though he is not a celebrity per se. And he has gotten into a bit of a bad situation with the press because of like an outing that he had. And because he has this bad reputation, his employer has kind of given him notice that he needs to clear up his act, or otherwise they'll need to let him go. So he thinks of this as how do you say, as an opportunity maybe to date someone or fake date someone to get his act straight in front of everyone. And this is where one of his friends suggests like a mutual acquaintance of theirs, Oliver in the situation, to try and date him to see whether that would help. When they go on their first date, they find out that they're very not much alike. They're very opposite from one another, but at some point Luke is very honest with him and tells him that he needs this to work because otherwise he'll lose his job, and Oliver agrees to fake date him. I love this story to an extent. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was very entertaining for me, and I loved Oliver's character. The fake dating was very well done in this story. The only thing that kind of irked me was that Luke was very insecure all the time, and that kind of started to get on my nerves as the story progressed. But I did enjoy the romance. I did enjoy the opposites attract trope as well, and really Oliver is such a cinnamon roll hero. I loved him, so it really made up for a lot. And I did give this book 4 stars, and the audiobook was really fun as well. I also flew through it, so I definitely recommend the audio for this one. Next up, I read Scandalized by Ivy Owens. I really enjoyed this book. When I read it, I was like, all right, I really didn't expect to love this book so much because I hadn't heard too much about it because it just recently came out. But I loved it so much that I decided to take a look on Goodreads what other people thought about it and wrote about it. And I think that someone mentioned that this author is maybe one of the authors that is part of the duo Christina Lauren, but I cannot be sure. And I kind of got into a rabbit hole of a discussion about this book, unfortunately, which left me feeling a bit bad and sad, but I'm not going to get into the drama of that. What this book is about is 2 people who used to know each other as children. It's Georgia and Alec, or I have to say that Georgia was friends with the hero's little sister, so he's older than her. And when they were kids, Georgia had a crush on him, but he didn't notice her because he was older. And then present time, we find them at the airport where Georgia is a journalist. She's an investigative journalist. She has just wrapped up an investigation which she needs to write about, and it's a very important story for her. And Alec is at the airport catching a flight to LA just as Georgia is, and they reconnect. So Georgia recognizes him, and they kind of hit it off, start a conversation with each other, kind of reminisce about old times. And what happens is there is a storm. I think their flight gets canceled, and when they get to a hotel to try to book a room, the hotel is fully booked, and Alec managed to get a room at the hotel, but Georgia didn't, so he kind of offers for her to stay with him. Yeah, this is how the story starts, and there's a lot of things that happen within the book that really work out very well for me. I don't want to mention who Alec is, just to keep it kind of mysterious for you to want to pick it up. But I can say that Alec is of Korean descent, so I honestly don't know if the Korean representation was done well or not, but I think that it wasn't the focal point of the story. I think that the other characteristics of Alec were more important to the story. But yeah, it didn't bother me at all that some people mentioned that maybe the representation was not too well done. I wouldn't be able to speak on it, but for me, it just felt like other parts of his character were more central to the story. And yeah, I really loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It was a very fast-paced, again, story, and kind of, even though they weren't really friends when they were children, I do consider it a friends to lovers trope because they did know each other from kids and they had a lot of shared experiences together, and those experiences also bonded them at some point. So yeah, I really like this book. I've tried to record the clip for this specific book, I don't know how many times, because I'm really not good at explaining what this book is about. So I'm going to try it one more time to see whether I'm going to do it justice, and I'm just going to focus on the tropes maybe, and not too much on the story, because otherwise it becomes a very lengthy situation. The book is very long awaited, by me at least. It's Love on the Brain, which is the follow-up to The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. This book is another STEM novella where we're focusing on two characters within a STEM world. We have Bee and Levi, and the story has a bit of enemies to lovers, maybe opposites attract to some extent. We have a lot of miscommunication within the story, which is not a favorite of mine when it comes to tropes, but it does work out very well because it was well, kind of well written, or maybe well progressed within the story. And we have a worshipping hero, pining hero, which I absolutely love. Basically, Levi and Bee were college. They were in the same college, and they had a bad history together while they were in college, and nowadays they need to work together on a project, so they kind of need to revisit what happened in college, and they need to work through those situations so they can work well together. And in the process they find out that there is an attraction, that there is something that they can explore. So yeah, it's an amazing story. I was always wondering whether I'm going to like this one more than The Love Hypothesis, and when it comes to rating, I gave The Love Hypothesis 5 stars and this one 4.5 stars. But I do have to say that Love on the Brain, I think, is better written and better developed, so that the plot develops in a better way. And it has maybe a bit of a more interesting setting than The Love Hypothesis, but I think that I was more entertained by The Love Hypothesis. So both of them are kind of on the same scale, and I do recommend them both, to be honest. They're very fun reads and you can fly through them, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. The next book I'm not going to spend too much time talking about because I have a reading vlog which you'll be able to see about it, and it's called Burn for You by J.T. Geisinger. The only thing I'm going to say about it is that it has a marriage of convenience and that it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling or reimagining. If you're interested about seeing what I think about it and more about the plot of this story, I'm going to tell you that the reading vlog is called Marriage of Convenience Monday. I don't know if this video will come out before or after it, so if it is after it, I'll link it down below. If not, you'll be able to look it up by name. And we've come to the last book that I read in the month of August, which is part of the Vancouver Wolf series by Odette Stone. I absolutely love this series. I have to say that all 4 books are 4 or 5 star reads for me. This one I gave 5 stars, and it's called High Risk Rookie. In this story, we follow Krista and Levi. Levi is a hockey rookie who has a very bad reputation, and Krista is an agent who aspires to sign him so that he can play for the Vancouver Wolves. And in the beginning of the story, Krista goes to Mexico, where Levi is at that moment, to kind of get him to come with her so he can interview with the Wolves. But he is a bit of a party animal. He is not very serious when it comes to having a meeting and a sit down with her. And unfortunately, they both get drugged at this place where they're at, I think like a cocktail bar or club or wherever. They both get drugged, and something interesting happens after they get drugged. I'm not going to mention what. So the story starts off with a very interesting premise, a very fun and entertaining premise, and then eventually we have a sports romance going on. We have also, I wouldn't say a forbidden romance, but when it comes to Krista, she doesn't date her clients, or she doesn't want to date her clients, so it kind of becomes a forbidden romance. And yeah, a very banter-filled, um, fun type of read. I was really entertained throughout the whole process of the book. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars, and I definitely recommend all of the books in the series. And I think you can read them all as standalones, even though some of the people from some of the characters of the other books make an appearance in this book. You don't have to read them in order. Although I do recommend that you pick them up in order because you have more enjoyment if you do so. So yeah, the series is amazing. That's a wrap on my August reads. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know if you've read any of the stories that I mentioned, what you thought about them. I'm very curious about your opinion. I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Please subscribe to my channel. Happy reading. Have a wonderful day. Take care and bye-bye.